Welcome, everyone. My name is Joanna Regal, and on behalf of the Eastern Transportation Coalition, we welcome you to this RITIS workshop, Building a Corridor Performance Summary Report. I'm going to go through just a few housekeeping items, and then we'll get on to the main portion of the workshop. We are using Zoom webinar today, so you can join your audio either through the computer or phone, whichever works better. This web meeting is in fact being recorded. If you have any questions about the audio or web, you can reach Esther Cleet. The chat box is not available to participants. What we're going to be using today is the Q&A box. We ask any questions you have for John or Rick throughout the workshop. You put those right into the Q&A box. So you click on that Q&A symbol, you type your question in, and John Allen will be monitoring those questions throughout the entire workshop. And during the appropriate times, he'll stop and those questions will be answered. We have over 300 folks registered today for this workshop, so welcome to all, representing 23 different states. At this point, I'd like to take a moment and introduce our two speakers. We have John Allen and Rick Ayers, both from the CATT Lab. John Allen serves as a liaison and educator for the Center of Advanced Transportation Technology Laboratory, or the CATT Lab, at the University of Maryland. John also assists in user experience, user interface development, QA/QC, manages special projects, and aids in developing strategic directions for RITIS and the Probe Data Analytics Suite. John has also acted as a facilitator for a number of different organizations, including the Eastern Transportation Coalition and the partners in using archived operations data. Then we have Rick Ayers, who's going to be our primary presenter today. He's the public sector advocate at the CATT Lab. He has over 30 years of experience working with location-based enterprise software systems at the federal, state, and local level. In his current role, he serves to support state and local transportation agencies in the successful implementation and deployment of the RITIS. Rick has also worked extensively with the Eastern Transportation Coalition member agencies, as well as federal and state transportation agencies to support and manage their respective enterprise implementation of the RITIS platform. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Denise Marco. She is the TSMO Program Director for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Denise.
Thanks, Joanna. Can you hear me?
We can.
All righty, welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm looking forward to an exciting workshop. Just a couple real brief slides about who we are for those of you that are not familiar with the Eastern Transportation Coalition. We're a partnership of about 17 states, District of Columbia. Basically, our job is to focus on connecting public agencies across modes. We work with a freight program, a TSMO program, and an innovations program. And we have a very robust data tool program that we are sponsoring the workshop today. So as you can see on the slide, in the past 25 years, we've got about 200 agencies involved in some manner, shape, or form. Before we start, though, we'd like to welcome Kentucky. Kentucky is our newest member, voted in and approved by the executive board on March 1st. So welcome, and we're looking forward to many years of working with Kentucky in a collaborative relationship. Next slide, Joanna. And then lastly, before I turn this over to the group, this is a little bit about our coalition update, a little bit about what we do. We have been working recently on something called a Transportation Data Marketplace, or TDM, where we have 7 data sets that are available for procurement through the marketplace if you're a coalition member. We work with something called the HOGS. It's a highway operation group. We're holding several in New England this year, this fall and this winter. So we had one in February. We're having another one in April. We're really focused on road and weather operations. It's geared towards incident management and responder safety. Again, if you can see some of the upcoming work that we've got, we are doing a origin and destination workshop. This is the first one today. We're doing another one in April, an OD. It'll again be run by Rick. Wave. Right. And then we have an electronic vehicle workshop, some strategic planning, a freight committee meeting. We do sponsor the user groups, and again, another HOGS meeting in Potomac that talks about travel and information. So I'll be very brief because I know we have a lot to cover. And I think that's about it. Anybody has any questions, please feel free to send me an email or, yeah, send me an email. All right, Joanna, back to you, or to John. Take it away, John.
Okay, thanks, Denise. Rick, can you bring up your slides?
Absolutely, John.
You put,
You got it.
all right. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say, maybe morning in some of the parts of the country. But I just wanted to give you a couple of minutes about our working group that has been instrumental in putting together the performance templates and other information. I wanted to just touch base with that a little bit. One great thing about this group is their diversity. They cut across a number of different disciplines, planning and operations, within different organizations, DOTs and MPOs. And there's even a few current and former RITIS user group co-chairs in the mix. And the other thing is they're all very familiar with the tools that we use and understand and get the big picture of performance reporting, but also understand the devil's in the details. So they bring a lot to the table. And it's just a terrific group of folks and colleagues and friends that have helped make the CATT Lab develop these reporting templates, and RITIS templates page that you'll be seeing in a moment a reality. And we're very thankful for their input, perspective, and their hard work there. So every group should have a mission, and this is ours, and it's pretty simple. Basically, we want to bring you all the resources you need to easily develop compelling performance reports for different purposes and to share with different audiences. And I think focusing on the graphic on the right is really what it's all about. We want to take vehicle probe and other data, use RITIS and PDA Suite to filter and visualize that data, and then finally use the templates to develop a story for your audiences so that they feel well informed and have the information that they need to make better decisions. Next slide. And lastly, leveraging off of that graphic, we developed this 3-step process to create performance reports. And this is what Rick's going to be walking you through today. In 2 different examples. One will be a monthly congestion report, one a quarterly performance report. So with that, I want to turn it over to Rick. He has a lot to cover in a short amount of time, and I'm sure you want to hear him rather than me. So take it away, Rick.
Well, thank you, John. Really appreciate kind of setting the stage for what we're going to share with you today. This is a unique sort of workshop that we pulled together. I want to roll back a little bit and express my gratitude to the partnership that we have with the Eastern Transportation Coalition, Denise, Joanna, and the rest of the team. A really terrific partnership, and helping to collaborate to pull this workshop together has been fantastic. This is, again, kind of a first of its kind workshop. Many of you, it looks like there's about 150 of you on today's workshop call and webinar. Some of you have probably interfaced with me in the context of professional development and outreach for the RITIS platform. We have yet to do anything as interesting in this, whereby we're bridging what we do with the RITIS platform, whether it's from a real-time operational context or from an analytical perspective using probe data analytics, bridging that with these information products that John is talking about and what we're going to focus on today. And that's these report templates that the CATT Lab has prepared for its user community. So from an agenda perspective, we've carved out 2 hours for today. Not sure if we're going to need the full 2 hours, but we have carved out 2 hours with the intent to provide you a quick overview from of some of these resources that are available to you as RITIS users. And I'm gonna roll through just a couple of the template reports of the multitude of report templates that are available to you. and walk through step by step how to develop the data metrics using probe data analytics so that you could populate these reports themselves. We're really going to focus on corridor performance reports, as well as a quarterly corridor performance report, as well as a monthly congestion report. So we're actually going to cover 2 of the multitudes of report templates today. Before we get started, though, with the help of my friends from the Eastern Transportation Coalition and Esther in particular, we're going to roll through some polling questions throughout today's workshop to kind of gauge, first off, here, your experience in using probe data analytics, and then ask you a few questions to help support the development of future content that might be similar to this workshop. So to help kind of frame and craft how to best support you through this workshop today, going to ask you to provide some feedback. Here is your question regarding your familiarity and experience with probe data analytics. Have you used PDA? Yes, I use it about 1 to 3 times per month. Yes, I use PDA regularly throughout the month. Or no, this is my first time using or learning probe data analytics. If you could, we're going to take a few moments, allow you to answer the question, this polling question. There are 150 plus folks that are on the line today. So hopefully most of you are familiar with PDA, as today's workshop is going to sort of, it's understood that you have some familiarity, but depending upon the results of today's poll or this particular poll, I may slow down at certain phases of the workshop. So Esther, how are we doing on responses?
I think we're going to close that poll and share the results.
Fabulous. Put on my spectacles. All right. Oh, interesting. First time using learning PDA. All right, so that's super insightful. So there's 60 of you that are new. A majority of you are familiar with PDA and have used the software, what I would characterize as our transportation big data analytics solution. I always like to set the stage and prepare and help conceptually visualize what RITIS is for those who are participating in training of mine, this workshop, or just general presentations. You know, RITIS, a lot of you in the transportation industry have probably heard the term, heard the acronym before. What is it? It's an acronym. It's the Regional Integrated Transportation Information System. We at the CATT Lab are responsible for the development, maintenance, support, and ongoing evolution of that platform and all of the tools and capabilities that are part of the RITIS platform. Broadly speaking, if you look at this infographic, at the top of the infographic are a number of real-time data feeds that could be coming from your DOT, your authoritative DOT, whether it's, maybe it's accident and incident information, maybe it's your CCTVs that are deployed across your highway network, maybe it's real-time way in motion stations, transit information. A lot of what we at the CATT Lab do with regard to RITIS and probe data analytics is archive. We ingest all of that data, we fuse it together, normalize it, archive it in perpetuity so that you as a consumer and user who's interested in performing analytics to derive data-driven insights about what's happening across your network, we build out a whole bunch of tools that you'll see later this afternoon in probe data analytics, help you answer questions, mobility questions about your network. So that's kind of at in a nutshell, conceptually, what RITIS is all about. Again, we at the CATT Lab are responsible for developing, maintaining, and supporting that platform. So we appreciate all of the users who contribute in such a way. Now at the CATT Lab, if you're familiar with RITIS and some of the real-time and analytic capabilities, you probably understand that there's help pages. You've probably familiarized yourself with help pages. But what I wanted to start today with is kind of explore some of the related support resources that are available to you as a user, consumer, and transportation practitioner of the RITIS platform. This particular website, and I'm not sure if this is something that Esther, you can do in the Q&A, but the RITIS resources page is a public-facing website resource or web page that allows you to kind of explore some of the basics of RITIS, our tool catalog. You'll see a quick animation here in a little bit, some use cases, some really nice tutorials, and then set the stage, the templates themselves. So I'm going to kind of activate this quick video tutorial or video demo of this resources webpage. Again, this is public facing, great way for you, if you're not a RITIS user, great way for you to explore some of the tools organized by use case, whether it's from an operations or planning perspective, dive into those tools in some detail. Click on any one of those tools, you get some descriptive information. You click on video tutorials, get some really nice tutorials. We have a use cases section that again is organized by operations or planning, a full library of tutorials for each of the different tools, and then the templates page. So we'll go over the templates page. Today, we're going to focus on just a couple of the report templates that we make available out of the Corridor Performance Report. Let's look at that templates page in a little bit more detail. There are 3 categories of templates that we make available. Again, today's workshop will focus on this template at the top from New Jersey DOT. We'll go through those. But what's really nice about this templates page is John and his team and a bunch of others have put together step-by-step details and descriptive insights as to how to build up these reports from the templates that we make available to you at no additional cost as a RITIS user. So again, 3 different categories of report templates, all organized and all provided with some really helpful descriptive step-by-step insights. For those of you who are familiar with probe data analytics, I'll share a little bit of why we have report templates, but to back it up, for those of you who are not familiar with probe data analytics, again, probe data analytics is this transportation big data analytics suite of tools and capabilities that allow you to go back in time and ask questions about your network to answer mobility-based performance measures questions about your network. From an operational perspective, those questions might be, hey, we implemented some retiming along this corridor. Let's analyze what the trends were, what KPIs were from a performance, travel time, overall reliability perspective before we retime this corridor. And now let's analyze it after we retime this corridor. Taking a look at big incidents across the region. What did the circumstances look like in and around the network from an after action perspective? Safety and operations analytics, all within an operational framework, some tools to support that. From a planning perspective, you're going to use probe data analytics to help support project prioritization initiatives, provide insights to help data-driven insights to help with business case justification. And then where we're kind of, the whole point of today's workshop is that you've got to use some of these tools that we make available to you from the CATT Lab, these wonderful, beautiful data visualization tools to help communicate and share a story to others, whether that's management within your organization, the general public. Maybe you need to send up reports to within your organization to the feds. We at the CATT Lab build out a whole bunch of amazing data visualizations that let you query this tremendously rich data archive of content from your own organization, as well as probe data providers like NRIX and Here Technologies. But you need to often kind of extrapolate, abstract that out, and deliver it in a meaningful and concise format or report information product, which is why we've done this. This is why we put together these report templates. Now, if you are a probe data analytics user, you're familiar with this, the PDA landing page. You're going to hear me use PDA. It's short for probe data analytics. I'll go back and forth periodically throughout today's workshop. You are familiar with the landing page for probe data analytics, excuse me. Now you're going to see a bunch of tools on this landing page because it's a screen grab from my login credentials. I have a few more cool little widgets and tools than perhaps some of you, but all of you who are probe data analytics users should have a shortcut like this one at the bottom that will also take you to that reports page that I demoed for you a moment ago, which is this page. So here's just some screen grabs of that report page. These templates organized by 3 different categories. Again, quarter performance reports, monthly congestion reports, as well as project assessment reports. Now, we rolled these templates out, gosh, John, what was it? Officially, maybe only a couple of months ago. But we've been working and collaborating with a number of state DOTs across the country to kind of formalize and filter out what some of the most meaningful abstractions of report templates might look like, which is what we've published on our reports templates website. A lot of our users, a lot of state agencies have already started to roll these things out internally. So we're seeing, after action report templates coming out of certain agencies, like this one came out of Oregon DOT. I delivered a report template workshop to them several months ago. They were able to leverage those workshops, or leverage the workshop, leverage the templates, and pull together something to support reporting internally for their agency. Massachusetts DOT is leveraging some of these templates themselves to pull together reports. This is kind of cool. I delivered a workshop to New Jersey DOT, some folks that are responsible for corridor operations. This is about a year ago. They were so moved by the kind of the value proposition of these templates that DOT has started to roll this format into something that's more automated and customized, that looks like this, that pulls data right out of probe data analytics and populates these monthly, quarterly reports to report mobility insights and KPIs for key corridors across their state. We even have some states, here again, Massachusetts DOT, that are leveraging our API to kind of replicate some form of these report templates and populate some dashboards themselves. So I've kind of set the stage, if you will, in terms of what some of the reports might look like, what their purpose is. So this is a good time to ask another polling question, which is, have you downloaded I mean, for those of you who are PDA or Probe Data Analytics users or already part of the community and family, have you downloaded and used any of the existing RITIS report templates available on the RITIS platform before today's workshop? 3 options. Yes, I have. Not yet, but Rick, I plan to. Well, Rick, I didn't even know about them, so no. So here you go. Here's polling question. Thank you, Esther. Give everyone a few moments to answer the question. Yes, I have downloaded and used some of these templates. No, Rick, I haven't, but I definitely plan to because I know this is cool stuff. Or C, I have no idea what you're talking about, which is why I'm on this workshop today, Rick. All right, what's the results, Esther? Oh, wow, cool. So we have quite a few of you. Well, there's 20 of you that have actually used them. But more importantly, there's a bunch of you that are expressing interest and want to use them. You're going to love today. If you are a Probe Data Analytics user, you're going to love today because here's what I'm going to do. Again, I'm going to take 2 of the multitude of templates that we make available to you on this reports website, report template website. Take 2 of them. This guy here, this monthly congestion performance report, and this guy, the quarterly corridor congestion report. And I'm going to walk you through how to build these out. So we're going to, again, take this one and this one, and I'll walk you through how to develop all these metrics, right, that are in these 2 report templates, all the, map insets, the content here. There's a bunch of hyperlinks that are embedded in some of the symbols and icons incorporated into each one of these reports. So before I do that, though, I'm going to pause, take a quick time out, and I see that there's probably some Q&A, or maybe John, have there been any questions that I should pause and address at this point before I go further?
Sure, Rick. A couple things. A few people asked about whether the slide deck and the recording will be available afterwards, and of course it will be. I just want to let everybody know that ahead of time, so you can go back and re-listen to it and look at the slide deck, because there's a lot of compelling stuff and it's a lot to take in. So we understand that, and be happy to follow up with either Rick or I on any of the questions you have there. Rick, you mentioned that right now there's 3 templates available.
3 broad categories of templates.
Right. So I just wanted to let folks know that there'll be others coming soon. We're going to look at to posting ones for after action reviews and top 10 bottlenecks, which we did a poll at the last RITIS user group meeting. People were very interested in that one, and travel advisories. So within a couple months, we're going to have those 3 up there. And one thing I wanted to point out too with the templates is there'll be, when you go to the site, there'll be a main template you can download, and then you see the how-to process. But then there's other choices there which says use cases. If you click on those, there's a variety of different templates that we develop for agencies, or agencies develop themselves, that can give you a really nice catalog of different presentations of information. So I highly recommend you check that out. And then there was a question from Vijay Sabwat, hope I'm saying that right, Vijay, about how accurate is INRIX data on signalized intersection corridors.
So that's a question that's outside the framework of today's workshop, but we will be happy to take your question and follow up with you afterwards. So we appreciate that. John, I'm gonna continue on. Thanks for peppering in those questions. Now, we've talked about templates, and I'm going to walk you through how to populate a couple of templates, right? Let me back up a little bit and help set the stage and further understanding to what these templates are. If you go to that template those report templates page, resource page, you're going to find that all of these templates that you download are kind of like Word templates. You know, if you have Microsoft Word open, you don't want to have to craft I don't know what it might be, a resume. Maybe you're looking for a new job and you don't want to have to format a resume from scratch. You know, Microsoft Word has a whole bunch of templates that you can leverage from the cloud and pre-populate, you know, leverage that template and create something that's nice and pretty and presentable. We've done the same thing at the CATT Lab for these reports. Again, these are all curated reports from a number of authoritative DOTs and agencies across the country. We've collaborated and worked with them to, again, curate these report templates, and they're all in the form of PowerPoint. So it's expected that you have PowerPoint on your desktop to be able to leverage these. I think the vision, I'll share this with you now. The vision is we've created these templates in PowerPoint to give you the ability to help tell a story. But the long-term vision is that for some of these report templates, they're so compelling, they're so insightful in terms of delivering concise KPIs about your network that we hope to, in time, with some of our partners and RITIS support community, that we'll be able to produce these in more of an automated fashion within the RITIS platform. But for today, we've got these really cool PowerPoint templates that we're going to provide to you, and I am going to walk you through. So the first of the templates that we're going to walk through is really going to leverage just a few of the tools that are part of the broader suite of tools within Probe Data Analytics, which are here. So this first template report, we're going to focus on using just 6 tools. Just 6 tools. God, Rick, really? You're going to make me go through 6 of these? But we're going to leverage the congestion scan tool, the performance charts tool, bottleneck ranking tool, the user delay cost analysis tool, trend map, as well as temporal comparison maps tool. So all 6 of these tools, it's kind of cool. All 6 of these tools were run, or I performed my analysis with each of these tools to help then populate the various different metrics or elements to this report, this 1-page, again, concise report. Now, before I go into the first element, which you saw highlighted with this gold box that came around this map inset or this map component, let me just cover really quickly some elements that we will be reviewing in terms of how to develop the metrics and then populate. This report, as the next one, I developed on my own. I put together the use case. I have a home in Northern Virginia. It's it's the instructor's prerogative to use whatever geography and use cases he wants. So I took that liberty. And so both the use cases to populate both this report and the next one are out of Virginia. Go VDOT. I see that there's a bunch of folks from VDOT and consultants on the line. So you'll appreciate some of this stuff. But while the use cases are from Northern Virginia, it really doesn't matter. You can run. I've delivered template-specific operational and planning training to a number of state DOTs, and all of these metrics can be derived. If you're a RITIS or Probe Data Analytics user and you're subscribing to either INRIX or Here Technologies Probe Data, and you have access to Probe Data Analytics, you'll be able to populate and replicate what we're going to do today. Some of the elements that go into this single page report are basic things. You know, when you open the PowerPoint template, all of this is configurable, right? You put in your descriptive information about the bottleneck itself, or the the priority congestion this is a monthly congestion report. You'll see where I'm going. I ran some analysis using PDA to determine, well, what are my most congested corridors in Northern Virginia? Well, the number 3 one is the number 3 most congested corridor is not too far from my home in Northern Virginia. It's Virginia 123 southbound at I-95. A total jacked up mess because it's just a mess right here. And I know that VDOT's working on a plan for that. So thank you, VDOT. All of these other elements, these other metrics are all going to be derived from running PDA tools. Okay, we'll walk through each of these. Notice as I hover over each of these symbols, I got like the little hand, like there's a hyperlink there. The other really cool things about these report templates, the way John and I have kind of evolved some of these and particularly how I share and impart and communicate to other state DOTs some best practices in leveraging these. If per se, you were to try to replicate this monthly congestion report for your state agency, what I have done for all of 6 of those tools that I showed you earlier that I run, there's a unique URL that's generated for the result analysis. I could take that unique URL and I simply embed that as a link to each one of these different performance measure based analytics. So now, not only are you developing a one-page, maybe this becomes a PDF that you share with management, or maybe this is maybe you embed this in your internal website, or maybe this is public facing and you share this on a monthly basis. Whatever it is, internally, by embedding the link to the results of your analysis that generates these metrics, you have an archived record that you've managed and maintained or embedded in every single one of these reports. So it's kind of a cool facet to these report templates that we also make available. There's links here to travel time reliability, as well as links to embedded maps, which are, I'll kind of walk you through. But this first kind of component of this monthly congestion report is a screen grab of nothing more than the results of the first tool that we're going to explore today to help generate the metrics and information that goes into this report is the bottleneck ranking report. So here we're seeing, again, just a screen grab right out of Probe Data Analytics and the resulting bottleneck ranking report. And this is the number 3 ranked worst bottleneck for February of 2022 that I've incorporated into this report. So without further ado, let's take a look. What is a bottleneck ranking report? Well, I told Probe Data Analytics, hey, go out all the state routes and all the US routes in Northern Virginia, which is Fairfax, Loudoun, and Prince William. I don't know all the districts, VDOT folks, sorry. I said, hey, run some analysis. I'll show you the results here in a minute because I'm going to go right to the results. But the bottleneck ranking report or bottleneck ranking analysis goes through all of the roads that you set forth that you want to analyze for the period of performance that you want analyzed. This is like all Virginia roads for like some point in October. And it says, you know what, not only based on congestion, but you know what, if we're pulling in accident data, work zone data, we're going to show you all the bottlenecks or all the top most congested corridors within the defined region that you told me to analyze. And I'm going to generate a tabular list of all of those. And I'm going to give you some cool data visualizations like this time spiral. I'm going to give you this interactive map so that you can explore. the actual bottleneck itself. You could see context. If we're pulling in your accident and work zone data, you can see context to why it's all jacked up, because, hey, there's a lot of accidents and incidents along this corridor. So that is what a bottleneck ranking report and analysis does. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to just jump over to my browser, and we're going to explore the results of that really quickly. Now, I'm going to move this right here for now. We've already seen a demo of the reports page, or the reports templates page. Just kind of bang through this again really quickly, but organized very, very well, very nicely in terms of the different types of reports that are available. Again, each one of these, when you go to download them, it's just a PowerPoint template. And then again, we walk you through step by step how some best practices and how to populate each of those. So let's go to the development and determination of that first component to my my monthly congestion report. I ran, let's just say, for now, we're going to, well, maybe I should start from the beginning. If you are new to Probe Data Analytics, go to your landing page. And again, here's all the tools within Probe Data Analytics. I just clicked on the bottleneck ranking, pops this up. And, you know, as I was starting the development of this workshop, I said, again, I'm the instructor. I'm going to use use cases in Northern Virginia. And so I said, you know what, I want to look at February, because this is a monthly congestion report. I'm going to look at the month of February, because that's this last month. We'll almost be at a point where we can do analysis in January. But I came in, I said, you know what, we're going to look at Northern Virginia in particular. Again, my apologies to BDOT staff for not knowing if my definition of the Northern Virginia district is accurate or not. But I just said, hey, you know what, I want to look at Fairfax County roads and Loudoun County roads and Prince William County roads for the month of February. So I come in here, so I set up my spatial parameters. Oh God, my spatial parameters, I only wanted US routes and state routes. So I'm going to add those. So I'm really only focused on US routes and state routes within Northern Virginia. So I add that as the spatial parameter, a spatial component to my query. Now I've got to set up the temporal parameters. Those of you familiar with PDA, you get all of this, but newbies to Probe Data Analytics, there's always going to be two primary components to any query within Probe Data Analytics. The way in which you set up your query may look a little bit different from tool to tool, but fundamentally, when you're asking KPI or performance measure-based questions about your network, you want to know what those KPIs are for specific roads in specific geographies and for specific times. So there's always a spatial parameter and there's always a temporal parameter. So I've set up my spatial parameter. You see that here. These are all the US roads, US routes and state routes within the state of Virginia. And I'm doing my analysis for the month of February because it is a February monthly performance report. So I'm going to go back and say, okay, this is the period by which I want to perform my analysis. Just tell it which data set I want to use. If you're an INRIX user, you're probably only going to see INRIX. If you're a HERE user, you're only going to see HERE. You click the submit button and boom, here's the results. So I've already run the analysis for all the US and state routes for Northern Virginia for the month of February. That's reflected in the title of the output of my report, my bottleneck ranking report. Got 1,823 TMC segments. This is the period of performance or the temporal aspect that I perform my analysis. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about kind of exploring all the elements to a bottleneck ranking analysis, but what is important and super compelling is that the tool is going to go through and look at all the congestion that developed over the course of the month of February for every single road within Northern Virginia based on my query. And it says, like, from a congestion perspective, there's definitions of it. There's some nice illustrations to what defines congestion. But in short, if congestion evolves for more than, if congestion exists on a segment of road for any more than 5 minutes and sustains itself, below a certain speed threshold, that's going to be defined as congestion until the speed gets up a bunch, gets up above like the 60th percentile or something like that for more than 10 minutes. I forget the exact definition off the top of my head, but that defines congestion. And we're capturing and we're archiving all of that. And this resulting table will list every single bottleneck or key congested area in all of Northern Virginia for the entire month of February. And there could be hundreds, right? Well, there are hundreds in this case. But for my analysis, check this out. I'm just going to turn 3 of them on. I think I'm going to turn 3 of them on. I'm going to turn 3 of them on. But the third one, notice, that's Virginia 123 at I-95. Now, I chose to generate my report and develop my analysis or put together my report on that particular bottleneck because, again, I live near here. And so I thought it would be useful just from my own perspective. But it illustrates that, maybe some state DOTs, you might want to report every month on the top 5. Okay, well, we've got the top 5 right there. If you wanted to do the top 1,000, you can do the top 1,000. But the bottleneck ranking report allows you to identify very quickly, very easily, the top umpteenth most congested corridors throughout a defined spatial region. For each one of these bottlenecks or congested corridors, notice at the far right, if you're a user of Probe Data Analytics, you'll see that you could take the results of that particular bottleneck and look at the segment IDs that make up that bottleneck. You can open up a performance summary or performance chart for that bottleneck, as well as for that bottleneck, open up a user delay cost. Now, I point that out because that might be useful for populating some of the other metrics in my monthly congestion report, and it will. One thing to note, and we'll come back to this time spiral visually helps tell a story that we're going to use in this monthly report as well. And that is the trends for when congestion occurs largely along this corridor, the time of day. This time spiral reflects on the innermost circle, the first day of February, all the way to the outer circle, which represents the 28th day of February. And then the clock, the time of day that's been averaged out when, or the time of day in which congestion was clocked and recorded, and the different color schemes represent how large some of those bottlenecks were in terms of length. So with that, I'm going to pop back over to my presentation and kind of reflect on, of all the elements within this monthly congestion performance report, that's where I pulled this element from. I just took a screen grab of of the results of that performance of that report, and I popped it in here. I added a few other elements to kind of visually enhance the map, like the interstate shield here. I added a little legend to show, hey, there's accidents. There was a accident along that corridor during the reported period. And then I also kind of added some graphic elements to reflect the extent or the location to which that bottleneck occurred upstream from the junction at I-95. So the next elements that we're going to look at in this congestion performance report are coming from the same, the results, these metrics are coming from the same analytics. So we're going to now, where are we going to pull out our average AM peak and average PM peak, as well as travel times. We've got 3.5 minutes and 7.4 minutes AM and PM peak respectively. Well, where's this data coming from? How are we, Rick, how did you develop these metrics? And we're going to answer that next. And that's derived, all of that insight is derived through performance charts. Another really stunning data visualization from Probe Data Analytics suite of tools allows you to, again, set up some spatial and temporal parameters for the segments that you want to analyze, for the time period that you want to analyze. And these reports, or these series of charts, let you look at key KPIs and performance measures, whether it's congestion, speed, travel time. You can look at the variation of different temporal periods relative to one another and overlaid and stacked and in multiple directions. One of the key things that you pull out of performance charts is if the data and the temporal aspects of your query supports it, you could pull out the 5th and 95th percentile values for things like travel time or speed, as well as the 25th and 75th percentile values. So you get, we're looking at box and whisker charts here, but one of the other graphs also allows you to kind of visually see and then interpret those variations from a 5th, 95th, 25th, 75th perspective. So with that, let's jump over again to the performance chart that I generated, or the performance chart that I generated for this analysis. Again, I ran my analysis for all US state routes for the month of February. We see that reflected in the output results in my performance chart. So here we've got, we're doing the report on Virginia 123 at I-95. So I kind of set the stage by just performing the query on just that road for the month of February of this year. And this is the results. Now, right now, I happen to be looking at speed. So here is a drop down of the different performance measures that you can look at. You can look at speed and travel time. Now, at my end, I see it fairly clearly, but this graph, again, we're looking at travel time right now. The graph has an average line that reflects speeds in the afternoon. We're at the afternoon hour. Here, this is where we are in the afternoon. This reflects travel time for the afternoon. And at the peak for the afternoon on Virginia 123, the travel time was about 4.7 minutes. But notice if I single click on that point in the chart, I've got other variables or other values or metrics in here as well. So we've got the 5th and 95th, as well as the 25th and 75th percentile values at that particular time of the day. Now, when I go back to my report, I'm gonna just roll back to the report real quick. Notice that I've got speed values in this report and travel time values in this report. And the descriptive information that I incorporated into this one-page report was that it's the peak AM and peak PM. So how are we going to find peak AM peak and PM peak? We're going to use this performance chart. I'm going to walk you through that again real quick. And then in terms of these red values, notice that I've got 11% for the AM peak for that particular corridor right here, Virginia 123. It's 11% lower than free flow speed. And in PM, it's 46% lower than free flow speed for the month of February. And we've got similar sort of metrics and values that we pull for travel time. All right, so where are we going to get, how are we going to drive that? Again, in this performance chart, in the results, we know that the PM peak travel time is 7.4 minutes. And so all I did was, from a free flow perspective, I just took the 95th percentile. I said, you know what? I know it's a little high to assume, it's a little high to assume that, the 5th and 95th is going to be free flow, or from a travel time perspective. But the 5th and 95th is what the 95th is what I use. So like from an extreme perspective, that's the value that I used. And then similarly, on this, from a speed graph perspective, if we just look at the PM, our slowest speed was down here and the PM 21.3, which is reflected in the report. And then like the absolute slowest was 12.4. Okay. And then on the AM side, just move to the AM portion of the graph. You look for the peak, move along there, and you can drive your AM peak for speeds and for subsequent travel time in the AM portion of the performance chart. So that's all I did. And they just performed some simple math to kind of populate those elements of the report. All right. I'm going to pause because we've got a few more elements to go through in this particular report. We're at 2 o'clock straight up. It's been an hour. John, I'm going to pause, see if there's a question or two that we can quickly answer before I move on to the next elements in this monthly.
Sure. Question just popped up as you were saying that, from Jessica Carpenter, who asked, any chance we can get the 85th percentile numbers as well, particularly for speed?
Yes. Out of the performance chart directly, it's not out of the box, but you can with Probe Data Analytics.
And Elizabeth Bowen just asked, is there traffic volumes available?
So that's a good question. There are 2 tools within Probe Data Analytics that leverages volumes. Volume data is necessary for these elements to the report, the user delay costs and vehicle hours of delay. And are also important for determining bottleneck. So those are the 2 tools that leverage volumes. Now, many of our state users, RITIS users, will provide their volume data to us on a regular basis so that we have authoritative AADTs or volumes to ingest and use as part of our calculations. If you do not have volumes, then there are third-party data providers that when you subscribe to RITIS, PDA, whoever your probe data provider is, they could provide volume data as well. But generally speaking, most of our PDA users provide us their volume data, and we pull that out. But in terms of volume elements that come out of probe data analytics, we use volumes to help develop and derive metrics, but you're not going to get volume directly. That comes from the state agency. Any other questions we can answer quickly, John?
I'm mute, sorry about that. Just two more. What data did you use for this report that you have up now? And highest value of 95th percentile speed is taken as free flow speed. So that was a question about how you develop the free flow speed context there for that graphic.
So the data that is used to drive, again, my use cases are in Virginia. Virginia subscribes to INRIX probe data. So most of the elements that you see, all of these metrics that you see are being derived from either one directly from INRIX, an archive of INRIX probe data, or some derivative of INRIX probe data with VDOT's provided volume data, because things like vehicle hours of delay and user delay costs, as well as bottleneck ranking, cannot be calculated without volumes from our partner at VDOT. But then the other element that's coming directly from VDOT are things like the number of incidents. So one of the beauties of being a full enterprise consumer user and licensee of RITIS is that we can and will integrate into the RITIS platform all of your real-time incidents, work zones, dynamic message signs, CCTVs, roadway deployed speed sensors, and some of that information gets integrated directly into the output analytics products within PDA, like this bottleneck ranking report. You know, it's one thing to go back in time and look at probe data from any of the providers relative to volumes to analyze where the most congested corridors in a region are. But then when you could say, hey, you know what? Oh, that makes sense that we had a high frequency of congestion along that corridor because there was a large number of incidents on that corridor for that particular period of time. So the fact that I pulled out in this infographic and this report that there was, it's just another data point that there happened to be one accident. You know, some of these corridors in the bottleneck ranking report can have dozens of incidents for any particular period. And again, incidents are coming from VDOT in this use case. Volumes are coming from VDOT for this particular use case. And if you're a RITIS user, we're going to calculate those based on whether you provided it to us or your third-party probe data provider provided it. Now then, I know there's a couple other questions, but I am going to move on at this juncture, John. So let's hold questions for the time being. So it's a good segue. We're talking about volume data from the authoritative source, the state agency themselves, being contributed to the CATT Lab to help us develop key performance indicators or performance measures, things like user delay cost, as well as analyzing bottleneck ranking. Well, that user delay cost, whether it's from vehicle hours of delay or an actual value, dollar value, is being derived from this tool, and that is the user delay cost analysis tool. So the user delay cost analysis tool, it's kind of unique in that it does allow you to kind of separate out whether you want to look at passenger via versus commercial vehicle costs. You have total costs versus vehicle miles traveled, vehicle hours of delay. So there's different metrics that you can look at and you can quantify. Develops this table for the temporal period that you want to analyze. It summarizes by day, by hour, and overall summary what the user delay costs are. Again, excuse me, for the spatial and the temporal aspect of your query. So that's the user delay cost tool. So let's take a look at where I pulled values to populate the report for Virginia 23. So here's my user delay cost analysis results. What went into this? Again, I said, hey, I want to look at Virginia 123 at I-95. I basically just said, hey, just look at southbound 123, and I want to analyze it for February 1st to March. Well, it should have been February 28th, but it went to March 1st, which is fine. But here's some different controls to look at different costs by passenger vehicle, commercial vehicle. Right now, by default, when you run your analysis, it's really cool. You get this immediate visualization that highlights where there's some extreme costs for the month of February. You know, and this is pretty standard sort of pattern that you might expect for a Monday through Friday. Here's the weekend, Monday through Friday, PM peak. Here's another Monday through Friday, PM peak. This is kind of abnormal. This is a weekend right here. This is the February 19th and February 20th. I'm willing to bet that this correlates maybe to that one accident that we saw in the report, or maybe there was some special event that was going on. There's down near Lorton, there's some public spaces, maybe something was going on down there to create this congestion. But what's cool, again, is that these user delay cost reports give you a quick visualization, but more importantly, for our report, every single day of the month or the temporal period that I want to analyze is in my record set, and then my columns are hours of the day. So I could get summaries by day, I could get summaries by hour, clear pattern of afternoon congestion for that Virginia 123 southbound. But overall, here's my user delay cost total, 118,497. And then if we look at vehicle hours of delay, 5,292. So pull those values out after running the analysis, and that, surprise, surprise, is what goes into that report. And I think I reflected that properly. Yeah. So that's what goes into those two components of this monthly congestion performance report. The user delay cost chart to help assess and quantify the delay for that particular corridor. Just going to kind of repeat all the analysis. You know, I had to start with running a bottleneck ranking report for the whole Northern Virginia area. I decided, you know what, I'm just going to run my congestion report on just one of those corridors, Virginia 123 South. So all of these metrics are simply run for just Virginia 123. You know, you can generate one of these for the top 5 if you wanted to. But I just want to repeat again that I've developed this specific report for just the third most ranked the top third most congested corridor within Virginia for February 2022. Now, moving on to the next element of this congestion report, and that is just congestion locations. Now, for this, I kind of, we have to roll back to, we could roll back to the results of the bottleneck ranking report, or we can run a congestion scan. Personally, I like running the congestion scan because it is yet another cool data visualization out of Probe Data Analytics. It allows you to kind of set the spatial parameters. For me, it's Virginia 123, the temporal parameters, the month of February, and you can look at one or multiple time periods and analyze different time periods along this linear roadway diagram. So this roadway diagram represents the corridor that you're analyzing, which is kind of cool. You've got some filters to kind of shrink the corridor and kind of focus your attention, if you will, on specific areas along the corridor. You have all your KPIs up here. You can look at speed and travel time, percent congestion. And then for every hour of the day, regardless of what days or months or years you're analyzing, you get these bar graphs that in a sense kind of represent where it was jacked up and when it was jacked up along that corridor. So that is the congestion scan. Now, this is not an ideal example. Like if this was a recording of say an area, or this was some analysis of an area that had a bunch of accidents or incidents, you'd see those accidents, incidents, and work zones integrated with this congestion scan, which is super cool because it provides context to why congestion may have occurred at a particular time on that particular corridor. So, oh, that's not used. So let's go back and take a look at not usually cost, but the congestion scan results. So this is a really basic congestion scan because I just ran analysis on Virginia 123 for a couple of segments. And as you can see at the very top, I have the performance measure, a KPI that I'm looking at is percent congestion. I can look at travel times. Again, this is a fully interactive timeline for the month of February that we're looking at. This is all of Virginia 123 southbound from the intersection of 195. And I ran my analysis all the way to Furnace Road. Now, there are some cool things that you could do with this roadway diagram. If you wanted to just focus your attention on certain areas, there's these little zoom bars that let you kind of focus your attention on where it's most congested, so you can explore that in more detail. But then up here, you can also kind of filter or zoom in on a specific period of the day and look at, what did congestion look like at what particular time. The roadway diagram kind of reflects congestion as you move your cursor over different elements or time periods. It reflects that congestion along that roadway diagram. So for me, I just use this to say, hey, generally speaking, the worst congestion on this corridor was generally from about 3:30 to around 6:30, 7 o'clock. And that was, I could have used this to help answer the question of when congestion was most likely to occur. Or if I went back to the results of my bottleneck ranking report or analysis, my time spiral tells me the same story. It says, look, Rick, all of your congestion in the afternoon on Virginia 123 southbound was generally between 3:30 and 6:30 or 7. There are some outliers here. And if we wanted to, we could explore those in more detail. But generally speaking, in context to kind of populating and configuring my report, I wanted to know when these periods of time that it was most congested to help convey the message of when the most likely period of time was that it was congested. So that's where these timelines came from. So really in the morning, as you could see from both the congestion scan as well as the bottleneck ranking report, really no AM congestion, but the PM congestion was right around that 3:30, 6:30 time period. So that's where that element came from. Two more elements that contribute or go into this monthly congestion report, and that's travel time reliability for February versus January. And the other we'll get to in a moment. But let's focus on travel time reliability. We're looking at February versus January. Rick, how did you determine that February of 2022 improved modestly between the two time periods? Well, I used the temporal comparison map tool. This is another cool innovation and data visualization from the CATT Lab. It's part of the PDA tool suite. Let you look at, again, any number of corridors that you define, analyze different temporal periods relative to one another, and then the result is a comparison or delta map. So in this quick video demo, and I'll show you the results of the analysis that I ran, but one of the four maps here is actually a delta map. So it will take all of the different temporal periods that you want to analyze, and it then creates a delta map or a change map of certain KPIs, and lets you look at that and interactively move your cursor over different data elements to see visually and compare where the change has occurred from a reliability perspective, from a speed perspective, whatever the KPI is that you want to analyze, lets you explore that in some detail. And that's the temporal comparison map. So here we are. This is the output. Again, I'm not going to run through. This isn't a PDA training class. This is just kind of help walk you through the tools that I use to populate the metrics in the report. But this is the output of the temporal comparison analysis that I ran. Now the period, as you can see, this is my stretch of southbound 123. I only analyzed the southbound 123. I took it, VDOT folks, I took the segment up a little bit further to, I think, Fairfax County Parkway. But in terms of the period that I analyzed, remember in my report, I wanted to see, well, was there any real change between February and the month prior, January? So that's what I did. I ran my analysis for January, and I want to compare it to February. But then the map another map that's turned on is the delta. So here, let's look at these maps in detail. Here's January. I only looked at the PM peak, and I defined that, by the way. I defined the period that I wanted to analyze. I said 3:15 to 7:30. I should have used 3:30 to 7 based on my report, but I didn't. Anyway, this is February. Now then, look at this far right map. This is the delta of January versus February. Fully interactive. The KPI that I'm looking at is travel time reliability. As I zoom in here, I zoomed in too far. I zoom in here near Occoquan. I can hover my mouse over each of the TMC segments. If I do a single click, it locks the pop-up, and then it allows me to explore the February 22 travel time reliability index value relative to the January value. So travel time actually improved by 0.02 of a second, or from a reliability perspective. So that's how I was able to come up with a modest improvement in reliability. Most of the rest of the segments of that corridor, they saw no substantive sort of change. I went through and inspected several of these TMC segments, but from January to February, there was a modest improvement from between the 2 months for that particular segment. But the temporal comparison maps tool is, again, a great way to spatially and temporally, in an interactive way, compare and contrast different time periods from a performance reliability perspective, what's changed over time, and to actually generate an actual meaningful map visualization of that. But also, I haven't pointed this out. Every single tool within Probe Data Analytics allows you to export the results into some tabular form. So we believe strongly in interoperability at the CATT Lab. While yes, we develop these really wonderful, beautiful data visualizations so that you can explore this transportation big data archive, we understand that some of you like to bit twiddle with your own BI tool of choice, and or maybe want to put this in your own GIS platform of choice. So we do provide interoperability and export functions for the results of any analysis within PDA. And that notion of interoperability is a good segue to the last element of this report, which is in the inset map on relative to the bottleneck ranking report. Very difficult to see here, but this is an animated GIF. This animated GIF has a hyperlink. You can see that when I hover over it. That's the same as the hyperlink to this text here. Click the inset map to open an animation of congestion for the reported month, a spatial animation of congestion. How cool is that? All right, so I'm going to show you how I developed this spatial animation of congestion for this particular report. Personally, a lot of you who have had me present to you or have delivered training, the trend map is one of my favorite tools within Probe Data Analytics, because I had a full career and working for a GIS software firm not too long ago, and I just love maps. And I think this is a cool way to represent congestion and or various different performance measures to see context. Like notice in this particular demo, we see work zones and accidents and incidents relative to congestion. So we're pulling in Massachusetts DOT's accidents, incidents, and work zones. So what's neat about these trend maps is, you kind of define what area, what roads or region you want to explore from an analytics perspective for KPIs, and over different periods of time. Like this is November 27th versus the 21st in this little demo. So it's going to show you the congestion, but it's also going to pepper in or integrate the accidents, incidents, and work zones that were present during that period of time. So it gives you true context of what was going on, why the congestion occurred, perhaps. How did it impact other parts of the network? Really, really, really phenomenal tool. And I'll explore some additionally cool functions of that in a moment. But let's just go ahead and look at the trend map that I generated for our monthly corridor performance report. I went ahead and threw all the state and US routes into my trend map because it's be more visually interesting for the month of February. So this is the results. All right, so it's kind of cool. I'm looking at February, looking at every state and US route for the month of February. Right now, the KPI that I'm visualizing is percent congestion. I can look at travel times. I can look at speed. Speed isn't terribly informative because, you know, the more urban an area, the slower speeds are in general. So I generally like to look at comparative speed. You know, and you can see things like where congestion occurs. Now, this is going to be perhaps difficult to see at your end, but notice in the lower left, I have these play functions and a play bar. Notice where my play bar is from an animation perspective. I'm at 5:10 p.m. relative to the average for the entire month of February. I'm looking at 5:10 p.m. I can click play and I can animate this trend map and it will move through the day. I'm going to back it up. It'll move through the day and animate how congestion unfolds as you move through 12. I did a 5-minute increment. So as we move through the afternoon, you're going to see more congestion occur. You know, certain roads will go from yellow to orange. They'll eventually become red. This is fully interactive, so I could click on each of these TMC segments and get specific insights to what was going on at that particular moment. I could pause this. Now then, to my point earlier about interoperability and sharing or exploring the resulting data in other platforms of choice, notice that we've got a Save As button in the trend map. Let you save this out. And, you know, any of you or GIS practitioners, I've taken trend map data and I've generated my own story maps using the output from a trend map. But the other thing you can do, see that little share button right there? If you click that share button, it allows you to copy embed code. It's the one output information product from Probe Data Analytics that lets you share the results with a common URL openly, meaning you do not need PDA credentials to look at and interact with the actual trend map. How cool is that, right? So notice up here, I've got this really long, unique URL. I could share this with anyone. They don't need to have PDA credentials, and they can open up and interact with this trend map, play the animation, just as I was playing the animation within Probe Data Analytics, but in any browser. But what's also cool, maybe there's some really important message or insights that you wanted to share as part of this trend map. Maybe you wanted to embed this animation or this visualization on your internal or external website. I know that Georgia DOT, they distribute holiday travel advisories during Thanksgiving holidays. They take their trend maps and they publish them, embed them in their own external facing website. Well, I did that for VDOT as well. So VDOT folks that are on the line, I took my resulting trend map, I hacked into your system and I embedded right into your website this trend map because I didn't think your webmaster would really care. I'm sure he's cool with me. And notice this is all fully interactive, embedded component to the website that you choose to embed it in. So anywhere that you could take embed code and ingest it, Trend Map's one of those wonderful tools that has some output shareable capabilities that lets you do that. And sorry, BDOT folks, I really didn't hack into your system. This is just cached, so it's all good. I freak people out every time I show that. All right, so I'm going to go back. That kind of brings us full circle to the final product. So we've walked through every PDA tool that was necessary to generate this one report. Now, once you get the hang of it, you'll know, say you download this PDA, you download this template, you go through the exercise of generating, sorry about that. You go through the exercise of generating this report yourself. It may take you a little bit longer than I just walked you through, obviously, but really, really wonderful that you've got these 6 tools from Pro Data Analytics that you can use to populate the metrics within this monthly congestion performance report. Again, every single one of the outputs from PDA's analytics, I embedded as hyperlinks for all of these elements within the diagram here. So lots of content captured, saved, you can archive, but this single one-page report now able to share out with elected officials, with the general public, a concise information product to help tell your story. So we roll into another polling question. Here we go. I don't know how many people, God, we still have 140 people on the line. This is awesome. Thanks for hanging with me. We're at, it's 2:35 almost Eastern time. Next polling question. In general, this will be helpful for us because at the CATT Lab, we really love to take user input, help us define features and functions that we roll into our products, but also in the context of these template reports, much of this curated set of templates that we have today is based on feedback from our user community and key agencies that we partner with. Feedback that you provide here today may help us refine the next set of template reports that we develop. So here's your question. In general, who do you feel would be the audience or audiences for your performance reports? Oh, it's a multi-choice. Peers, just within your organization, maybe to management, executive leadership within your agency, the general public, and or elected officials. So Esther, thank you for pulling that up. Give you a few moments so you could choose as few or as many as you'd like for this poll. Click away, give you a few more moments. All right, Esther, what are our results? A good combination. Management and executive leadership, generally speaking, but a good. So John, this is good insight for the CATT Lab team and that committee that you're part of. Thank you everybody for responding to that. Your insights and sharing your perspective helps us craft where we go with our products. So John, with that, let's pause again really quickly before I roll through very quickly this last report template for any questions.
Sure. So Zenora Sultana asked if you're using the 95th percentile as the free flow speed.
You can use whatever value you want. I just happen to use 95th.
Okay. And then Carrie McInerney, I guess it is, asked, is congestion logged into the bottleneck for any speed 60% of free flow? I think, the model is you go below 60% of the free flow speed, that starts creating delay, and that's when you start assuming there's a bottleneck building.
Correct. And again, I kind of I made mention of this. There is lots of documentation, a wonderful infographic that describes for the bottleneck ranking report or analysis tool how bottlenecks are defined. And this isn't something the CATT Lab came up with. Federal Highway Administration, a number of key officials contributed to some research in developing this approach that was submitted at a TRB conference a number of years ago. So it's a recognized sort of prescribed methodology for defining bottlenecks and congestion, but and well documented in PDA's help system.
Okay,
Anything else, John?
that's it. I'm answering the other questions, so you can
All right, cool.
carry.
Hey,
Well,
Rich,
thanks.
it's Joanna, just before you start again, this, I believe this workshop, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is actually scheduled till 3:30. Not saying you're gonna take the whole time.
Yeah,
I thought we had
3:30.
2 hours.
That's the OD.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Well,
I'm just letting you know. I mean, I know you don't, you take what you need, but I don't want you to feel like you have to rush.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joanna. Yeah, this last report, a lot of the same kind of process procedure to populate the key metrics and variables that go in to this report. It again, not necessary to go over all of it. I've prepped it all up to review it with everybody, but this is just another format. There are some other elements in this particular report that are a little bit different, and I'll pause and move through that a little bit slower. In particular, average speeds. Excuse me. I shouldn't be drinking carbonated water while I'm presenting. So anyway, let's roll into this next report template, and that's the quarterly corridor performance report. Again, being a Northern Virginia resident, I chose to perform and to organize this use case around all the interstates in Northern Virginia. So I wanted to compare Q1 of 2022 to the same quarter of last year. Now, keep in mind we haven't completed Q1 of 2022, but all my analysis was done clear up to the 28th of the other day, or God, I guess yesterday. So it's close enough for demonstration purposes. So this quarterly corridor performance report, again, comparing this quarter of this year to the same quarter last year. Interesting insights. I mean, these are real numbers. Some significant changes between this quarter and last quarter. And I think we can, if you work for VDOT, certainly are familiar with Northern Virginia, there's certain events and incidents that occurred this quarter on I-95. Actually, most of the nation heard about what happened on I-95 this quarter here in Northern Virginia. So that certainly contributed to this huge increase. But anyway, let's roll through this, and I'll demonstrate really quickly how we populate the metrics for this quarterly corridor performance report. Most of the same tools were used to perform the analysis here. This is an error on my part. I should have included performance summaries, because that's the one additional tool that we'll look at in this section that we didn't look at. All right, so the first element, many different dynamic elements that went into this report. All of it's configurable, right? When you download these PowerPoint templates, everything's configurable. I simply said, hey, you know what? I'm only going to analyze interstates. I did a little bit of work, folks, to derive the number of directional miles of road within Northern Virginia interstates. And I basically, if you're a PDA user, or more importantly, if you're an NPM RDS analytics user, which most PDA users are licensed to use NPM RDS analytics, there's a download page for a shapefile for your state. That's for the National Highway System. And so I went to that shapefile. I calculated the number of directional miles, interstate miles. It's roughly 170 miles. And there happens to be volume AADT in the NPM RDS NHS data set. And that's where I derived the volumes. If you're your own state, you have your own tools, GIS or otherwise, to come up with these values that are part of this particular report. Other elements that you see in here, we'll roll through them all, but the first one we're going to take a look at is where change occurred across the Northern Virginia region. We've got bottlenecks here with some key metrics, a map that's a hyperlink. We've got travel time, reliability, increase or decrease here, as well as delay costs. That sounds familiar, Rick. Well, that's because we covered some of that earlier, but we're going to do it again. But we're actually going to do some basic math to calculate these values. But first, let's take a look at where change occurred. The change occurs, again, using the temporal comparison map. So I don't want to bore you with this demo again, but I really wanted to look at comparing Q1 of 2022 to Q1 of 2021. And I did that simply by running I set this up from a spatial perspective. I went in and said, hey, here's all the interstates for Northern Virginia. And then in terms of a temporal analysis, yeah, I hadn't fully set this up to demonstrate, but my output, I will say, this is the output of my temporal comparison map. The three maps that I have here are January 2021 through March of 2021, had a full quarter there. And then here, because we're not, we haven't finished the full quarter, I ran my analysis clear up to March 27th. So I looked at our current quarter relative to the previous quarter, the same quarter the previous year. And then this is the Delta map on the far right. So there's some big changes along certain corridors. Now, if you notice in the Delta map, that's a map in the far right here. I'm looking at all three of these maps. My performance measure that I'm looking at is travel time reliability. And I happen to be looking at AM peak right now. I can look at PM peak in a moment, but for the AM peak, what was striking to me, because I know there's a big road widening project that's going on I-66. This is a major interstate that brings workers into Washington, D.C. region and out of Washington, D.C. Highly congested, big, fairly urban area, big widening project. What's cool is that there is a decrease or improved conditions along this eastbound section of I-66. So we had back in 2021, travel time reliability was 2.29. And in 2022, it was 1.14. And I would assume, not keeping a close eye on that particular segment of the corridor, I would assume it's due to the fact that an additional lane was finally opened up as part of the road widening. They paved it, and conditions are flowing again, less construction activity. So to my point earlier about the value of these temporal comparison maps is let you interactively and spatially kind of explore, where change has occurred from period of performance to period of performance. I'm looking at AM peak. We can modify our map to look at PM peak. This was kind of interesting. We see a big increase in travel time reliability going over the Potomac River into Maryland up here. Not sure what that had contributed to. I haven't been up that way in a while. There might be some construction going on up there as well. But again, I wouldn't know that maybe by just looking at raw numbers, but this temporal comparison map analytics tool very quickly and easily lets me view and not only visualize and explore where changes occurred from a congestion or KPI perspective, but again, I can export that data and kind of explore it in more detail later. So going back to our report, that is exactly what that link is right there. So review where the change occurred. All I did was highlighted that text in the PowerPoint, took the URL, the unique URL from my, I don't know if I've actually paused and shown all of you this, but this is the unique URL. Every time you run analysis in Pro Data Analytics, that unique URL, as long as you're a PDA user and have credentials, Rick or you can send that URL to any other PDA user and they can open it up. Okay. The only tool that there's a unique URL to that you don't need credentials for is the trend map. And there's ways to share the trend map openly, and we'll cover that again. But that unique URL, I just copied that. And again, I just pasted it. I just made it a link as part of that element to this report. Now here we go, nice segue into a trend map. This is text referring to the trend map that I generated for this quarterly corridor performance report. The trend map, taking all the US interstates. I looked at January through March of 2022, and then here's January through March of 2021. Again, you've got different KPIs that you can look at. Keep in mind, when you go to share your trend map in the form of a embed code, or you want to share that unique URL to somebody who doesn't have PDA credentials, whatever the KPI is that you select here, whatever's selected there, that is, I'm going to move this map forward, animate this so we see something visually interesting. Whatever that KPI is, when you go to click that share as button, that's the KPI that's going to be represented in the output trend map. I shouldn't show you that because that's a different trend map, but that unique URL corresponds to all of those roads for that query and that KPI. It's just kind of something to keep in mind when you go to, just before you go to share your trend map. That is exactly what went into the URL that I integrated as a link to there. Okay. Now then, the next two metrics or components of this quarterly corridor performance report have to do with travel time and speeds. Now, I wanted to aggregate some of these values such that I can pretty quickly and easily calculate the difference between 2 quarters. If I were to use a performance summary report, there's probably some ways to kind of, take the output and monkey around with it in a spreadsheet, but even easier to do some broad-based performance measure calculations, simple calculations, like the difference between speeds and travel time between 2 quarters, is to leverage the performance summaries tool. Okay. So what went into this report are 2 things: average speeds for the AM and PM peak. That's on the left, right? And then this reliability measure is travel time. Like, did the travel time increase or did it decrease for this quarter versus the same quarter last year? All right. Well, as we could see, travel time increased by 4% across all interstates, and AM PM speeds went down by 5% and 6% respectively. So let's look at the performance summaries output to see how I derive that number. So that to set this up, again, 2 basic components that go into any query within PDA. You got your spatial, which I set that up to all the interstates that I want as part of my analysis, and then the temporal. Well, what is my temporal analysis? I want to compare Q1 of this year to Q2 last year. And that's what we had here. I compared this year's Q1 to last year's Q1. And then for this performance summary, I just aggregated AM peak all the way to the far end of PM peak and included midday, just to kind of simplify the demo and the use case. You can add different periods here. So let's just say, okay, well, Rick, I really want to look at midday. Okay, well, go ahead and look at midday. And then you come in here and you add another time period, and that's your midday. And oh, well, maybe I want to look at late night traffic because I want to look at whatever, right? Like, you have the control and fidelity to analyze that. But for demonstration purposes, 2 quarters were the analysis broader periods, and I looked at the entire day. And that's what went into the ability for me to generate this performance summary. Now the output, here again, I've got 278 segments. January of 2022 to March to yesterday in one tab. And then voila, I got another tab that gives me my results for the same segments, but for the same quarter last year. Now the data values or the metrics that I wanted to pull from this performance summary, the performance summary gives it to me. It's a summary of all of that for that entire period, right? Super cool. Look here, this column, speed from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Over here, I've got travel time from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Now, if I want to just look at weekdays, there's a weekday summary and average. I can look at weekends. I can look at all days. The same is true for travel time. I've got travel time values here for the summary. And so all I did is some basic math. I compared 2022 speeds to 2021 speed, and the same for 2021 travel time versus 2022 travel time. And that is exactly went into comparing Q1 to Q1 between 22 and 21 to come up with those speeds. Now here I did run AM and PM, and I guess I ran those reports, but then in terms of travel time, I combined the two, and that's those performance summaries that you just saw. We saw an increase of 4%. from travel time perspective. And the text kind of describes that. Now, if you wanted to break out travel time reliability to AM and PM, like the vehicle speeds, you could do that as well. Totally up to you. You have the fidelity to define that in your query. All right. I'm going to do one more pause, John, before we get to the last couple of elements. Any more questions?
Okay, just been typing fast and furious here, but
I'm glad
handling
you're
most
doing
of
this.
it. Yeah, I'm handling most of it, but there just one question popped up. Does PDA include traffic accidents info? Which it does. I don't know if you want to.
Caveat. If your agency subscribes to a full enterprise license of RITIS, meaning Probe Data Analytics is a suite of tools that's part of the RITIS platform. There are some users or states across the country that are just subscribing to PDA, which allows you to reach back in time relative to your probe data providers, minute by minute probe data, and run analysis against it. There are states like Virginia and Maryland and Georgia and Florida and others that are full enterprise subscribers, meaning they're kind of all in with regard to the RITIS platform. They provide us the ability to connect up with their real-time data like incidents, accidents, work zones, CCTV feeds, dynamic message signs. We fuse that data within RITIS and bring it to bear as part of the output information products from Probe Data Analytics. So only certain state DOTs are full subscribers of RITIS and gain the benefit, insights, and value of having that additional data brought in. That it, John? You're on mute, buddy.
Oh, I'm answering this question. Never mind. Bert has a follow-up, but I'm taking care of that. That's it.
Right on. Thanks, buddy. All right. We're coming up on 3 o'clock. 2 hours of listening to Rick Ayers is enough. So we're gonna make this last little bit quick and easy. Not too difficult to figure out where you're gonna pull, since we covered this already, where you're gonna pull user delay costs values from. Look here, I've got 2 links. One for the user delay cost for 2022, Q1 2022. I got another link to a UDC report for Q1 of 2021. It's a basic math to come up with the $9.7 million increase between the 2 quarters. Now we'll see that as I go into the actual results of my analysis, which is I had to run 2 UDC reports because the way the user delay cost analysis tool works, you have your temporal aspect. Here's my spatial, set up all the interstates, right? The temporal aspect expects you to provide a range. It can't be more than a year. I think it can't be more than a year's worth of date values. But basically perform one report for Q1 of 2022, and then run another one for Q1 of 2021. You have some control to define user delay costs values by passenger vehicle, commercial vehicle. Not going to cover that. That's PDA training. And then the output are two different results, right? You've got all the interstates for Q1 2022, which is January 1 through March 28, because I ran this yesterday. The total value of UDC costs was 28.4 million for delay costs. Like visually, God, this is stunning. What happened here? I see PM peak stuff going on here. There's hardly any AM peak congestion and delay costs. what a mess this was. Well, this was that I-95 closure due to this storm event earlier this year. So you could, I mean, quickly see and then also quickly calculate that cost quite a bit of money from a delay perspective, $2.5 million, you know, just on average compared to what might normally be just in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even tens of thousands from a delay cost perspective for Northern Virginia interstates. Total mess that created. That's 2022. And then I just I ran the same for 2021. Certainly some more congestion, which is was kind of interesting for me. I mean, we had some anomalies, probably accident related here. Certainly this late 2021, late Q1 2021, another big spike down here. But, you know, in terms of populating my report, I just took 18.7 million and I did some basic math and subtracted it from 28.4 million to come up with that last value. And that is where I came up with those final values. Oh, we got one more element, the bottleneck report. So there shouldn't be any questions about that. That's pretty straightforward, simple math, but keep in mind that you have to run two different reports. If you're doing a quarterly analysis, two different reports to then do your math. Last element, key bottleneck. Where was in quarter one of 2022, where was the key bottleneck? I should open this up to VDOT people. Where, once again, kind of relevant to where I live. Where was the number one bottleneck in Q1 in Northern Virginia? I-95 south at Virginia 123, exit 60. Surprise, surprise. This shows up. It's one of the most congested areas in the Washington National Capital Region. It is a total mess. But some interesting values here. Rick, where did you get total congested time? 24 days and 1 hour. Wow, you even included the number of incidents that contributed to that bottleneck for Q1 of 2022. How did you get that? This goes back to the last person's question. Great question. VDOT is an all-in enterprise user of RITIS. We, you know, due to our terrific partnership with VDOT, we're able to tap into their feed that provides incident data out of their ops center. We fuse that with RITIS, and we're able to provide context to congestion with the inclusion of all of their incidents, work zones, and so forth. So when I look at a bottleneck ranking report for all the interstates in Q1 of 2022, all right, here's my ranked list. The number one bottleneck is this guy, I-95 southbound. And check this out. Right at the head in the little red diamond, it has 749. Well, that corresponds to all the incidents that we pulled in from VDOT directly. 770, I'm not sure why that number is different. But then if you look at the time spiral, this is what's crazy, right? Like, this time spiral tells me that for the entire quarter, January 1 being the innermost ring and March 28th being the outermost ring, there's almost not a time of the day that that segment or that corridor of I-95 southbound isn't a jacked up mess. And every single one of these yellow diamonds is an accident. And I can click on those accidents. I can open the timeline for it. I get a congestion scan, see what's going on, you know, lane closures. but every single one of these little yellow diamonds is an accident. And then all these orange ones are work zone activities. So it is absolutely insightful and relevant contextual information to be able to bring in incident and work zones. Certainly not absolutely necessary to generate a bottleneck congestion report, but it is super cool. And then I can interactively kind of mouse over different segments of the bottleneck. I can look at the individual accidents at different periods. Again, I can open up those accidents, look at their timeline. It's cool stuff. But going back to my report, for this number one bottleneck, I-95 southbound at Virginia 123, there's a number of data elements that are incorporated along with this bottleneck. One of them, not only is there the number of events and accidents, but the other one is the total duration. So 24 days and 1 hour is exactly where I pulled that metric for that element of my report. And then this is a hyperlink to the actual bottleneck ranking report. So I put in, you can see that as I hover over, well, hold on. As I hover over that little map inset, if I were to click on that element, opens up the bottleneck ranking report. Again, I really like the idea of embedding the results of all your analysis into these one-page reports, because again, it provides an archive or a record for every time you run a quarterly report, every time you run a monthly corridor analysis, or for any of the reports that you might leverage from our templates report page. Embedding that stuff provides a record of it. So with that, I think we're at the end. We've got a couple more polling questions for those who have stuck it out. My goodness, 120 of you have stuck it out. I think I've even lost my friends from the Eastern Transportation Coalition. Are you guys still on? Joanna, Esther, are you still there?
We're still here. Denise had to catch her flight back from Kentucky when she was visiting the newest member. But other than that, we're all here with you, Rick.
All right. Well, Esther, this is another opportunity for you. We got a couple more polling questions for everybody. Then we'll wrap up with another question or two, because I know everybody's got a busy schedule. You've been super patient and appreciate you guys spending time with us this afternoon. Next polling question. Now that you've seen how to create a corridor performance report, would you consider sharing your use case perhaps at a future RITIS user group meeting? So our partnership with the Eastern Transportation Coalition, the CATT Labs partnership, provides opportunities once a quarter where we have RITIS user group meetings. And so if you're not familiar with these, it's perhaps because you are not a RITIS, maybe not a RITIS user, or somehow you've not managed to get on the invite list, but we're happy to follow up with you if you're not getting invites to our quarterly user group meetings. But at every user group meeting, we kind of kick off with some business like we did today. Now the Eastern Transportation Coalition does, but then we jump right in to showcase RITIS users from various different state DOTs and illustrating and demonstrating how they've leveraged the RITIS platform, Probe Data Analytics, maybe some of the templates to improve, operations or planning within their agency. So again, now that you've seen how to perhaps leverage these template reports for your agency, what we're asking, would you care to take some of these reports, maybe try to implement some at your own agency, and then share that back and the results that you've had with management or senior executives within your agency, share that back with the RITIS user community. If you answer yes, we'd love to follow up with you, but here's that polling question. Esther, if you would, we'd love to get your feedback. You know, if you care to, great, we'll follow up with you. If not, no big deal. Because I know it's maybe timid or shy. But if you are interested in kind of playing around with these templates, applying them in a real world context, we want to hear from you. And that's what this is about. So Esther, results, please. They're going to be a bunch of big fat no's. Yeah. They got a few. Well,
You
thank
got
you.
quite a few, Rick.
Yeah, thank you, 11 of you. We'll follow up with you. I think there's a way to, is there a way to explicitly?
Yes, there
follow?
is. Esther will provide that to you after the meeting.
All right, very cool. Thanks, Esther. Just a couple more polling questions. I thought there was one more polling question. Oh, there it is. And then I'll go back. All right. Last polling question, and then I'll roll back. Please give the CATT Lab a score of 1 to 5 for the value of providing these report templates and this workshop as resources for your agency. You know, recognize this is a relatively new resource. Some of you have never seen this before. Do you see this as valuable? Do you want more of this? Do you like this? Give us some feedback. Esther. Again, we love feedback from our user community. We want to hear from you. If there's more of this sort of stuff that we can do, we'd love to do so. Oh, and then we have one more polling question, don't we? Why not get that one in? All right, what's the results, Esther? Yeah, valuable. Good, good, good. All right. Well, thank you for contributing. And was there, I did want to, yep, last polling question. We'd like to develop future, so here's the deal. Again, in collaboration with the Eastern Transportation Coalition, we, the CATT Lab, are interested in, you know, this is kind of a first of a kind sort of workshop. You know, we do our user group meetings. The coalition conducts other workshops. This one in particular was, correct me if I'm wrong, Joanna, but it's kind of first of its kind.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, this idea of kind of focusing on maybe a tool within Pro Data Analytics or some sets of capabilities. Like today, we focused on these report templates and how to populate them and how to craft them and configure them to help tell your story. Would you like to see, would you like to see more of these, perhaps at like a cadence of 4 per year? Would this be of interest to you?
And I think, Rick, we're talking about like a shorter type of training. It would be something, you know, hopefully folks will get more comfortable with the tools, and then they'll be, you know, you won't have to spend as much time going through those parts, and you can really just focus on, you know, there's just one specific topic.
Right. Yeah, today was pretty broad, lots to cover. We had lots of time, but the idea is 1 hour sessions focused on a specific tool, maybe 4 times per year. You know, is this something you'd be interested? Yes, no, I don't really know, Rick. If you answer yes, I'm going to follow up with you in particular because you're going to help me build out that workshop.
Yeah, we will probably ask some follow-up questions to people just that we get a better sense of what folks might be interested in.
All right, results, Esther. All right, everybody's making more work for me. I love you. Awesome.
Gainfully employed.
Well, we sort of expected that there'd be some broad interest in doing more of these. Real quick, as part of, before we go to the last question or two from the studio audience, I did want to point out in the presentation slide deck that I'll share out as a PDF on the Eastern Transportation Coalition's website, and Esther, do me a favor and pop up that URL when you have a moment. I'm in the Q&A. I've included a number of resource links that you can refer to. There's the RITIS tool catalog that's great to peruse. Rick, I covered 7 different tools today. There's a boatload more, right? You can review those, peruse them at the tools catalog page. This is all public facing. Our report templates, and it's a public facing page as well, but I believe you need credentials to download them. Our tutorials are all public facing. It's not a complete library of tutorials for all of our tools, but certainly worthy of a perusal to kind of go deeper into how to run some of the tools within Probe Data Analytics. And then once we do release, there is a link to the Eastern Transportation Coalition's website, in particular to previous user group meetings, but I believe in the Q&A chat, Q&A dialogue included that URL that you can navigate to more immediately. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in there now.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I think it's time to kind of wrap up. John, I think we have time for one more question, maybe 2, before we close for the day.
Okay, I've answered most of the questions, but there was a couple folks who were asking about that one template you showed that has the disc shape, right? About where is it available? Because right now it's not up on the template site. It's a relatively new one, and we use it specifically for a couple of DOTs, but we want to get it out there because people seem interested in it, and it's a good one because it's very clean. So what we're going to do is put that out under the area that says download agency use case examples. So the way it's structured now is we have one template, and it's usually more of a technically oriented template that we put together the how-to for. We use that same how-to and all the results from the different tools and add it to these other templates that other agencies have developed themselves or we develop for them under the use case examples. And you can cross-pollinate here. You can maybe say, I like the before and after template, and I'm going to use that for congestion reports. That's fine. And Rick's done that himself, because that one with the roadway graphic with the 4 boxes was originally developed for before and after. So, take a look at all that information and all those examples and just pick the ones that you think work best for you. But we'll make sure that we get that one template up.
Yeah, apologies. There was intent for us to have that available by today, but it just didn't happen. But we'll have it there for John's.
Okay. And Rob just asked a question I can answer real quick. He said, what's the most impressive use case that you've seen for the report templates or any of the various tools? And from my perspective, I just get a presentation on this last RITIS user group meeting was for the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. Great guy there, Ed Stilts, was putting together a 75-page report. Took him tons of time and effort. And we came up with that disc template format, as well as a different one we didn't show today, that greatly reduced his workload, his effort, and the size of this report. It could be down to, I don't know the exact count, he hasn't started using it yet, maybe 20 pages instead of 75. And it's going to be a lot more informative and useful. And it's also linked to the tools. So if he's doing a presentation, wants to drill down into some more information, he clicks on an icon or a title, and it opens up the RITIS results, and you can use it interactively. So big improvement there for him that's going to help him and his group tremendously.
Yeah, that's a great use case. So here are a few contact emails for those who participated today. Take a quick screen grab or jot these down. This will be in the slide deck. Feel free to follow up with myself or John for one-off questions. Happy to help you out. I'm out of town doing more training this next couple of days, so I may not get back to you until Friday of this week. but happy to follow up. Love hearing from the users. Would love your feedback. And with that, thank you again for your time. Thank you for your feedback. Your generosity today has been and participation today has been wonderful. Joanna, Esther, and John, thank you very much for your help. This has been a great session. I appreciate all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rick, for all the work you put into doing this. Great job.
Good
And
job.
thank you for all the attendees and for sticking with us. And
Thank
John
you.
for answering all the questions.
Way to go, John.
My fingers hurt.
I'm sure they do.
All right, take care all.
Bye, everybody. Reach out to us if you have questions. We're here to help.